so true. Funny how it seems, always in time, but never in line for dreams. Head over heels, went toe to toe. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound. I bought a ticket to the world, but now I've come back again. Why do I find it hard to write?
I think two things can be true at the same time. The first of those things is that this song, oh, does it take me back to the olden days? And by olden days, I mean the overnight shift at CKPC Radio, Light 92.1, Brantford. Because that's where it all began, doing midnight until 6 on, what was the name of that? West Avenue? I think it was West Avenue in Brantford. Anyway, the station, we couldn't even handle how good the station was because they shut it off a couple of summers ago. Anywho, I remember playing that song over and over and over again. So that's one thing that's true as we start the show today. And the other is that it will probably be the most mellow show we have ever had. I mean, how can you possibly get yourself worked up into a great big old lather after you hear the mellow tones of Spandau Ballet? I hereby recommend to every strip mall, every municipal building that would like to keep people away from its doors after hours, just play Spandau Ballet's True over the speakers. It just mellows people right out. It was on this day in 1983 that Spandau Ballet scored their first and only UK #1 album with the album called True. The title track from it, of course, is what you just heard. Spent 4 weeks at #1 on the UK singles charts back in 1983. This, of course, is 2025, the 14th of May, Wednesday morning. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for stopping by. And to those of you I was able to spend some time with last night at Binghamton's for the Waterloo Region Entrepreneur Hall of Fame Gala with JA, Southwestern Ontario. Great to see you. What a great room and a great night that we all had celebrating the local business success story of the Flanagan family and Flanagan Food Service. Congratulations to Joe and to Dee and to Rick, Dan, Jeff, and Murray Flanagan. A great night all around, and just recognizing some of the business people, one of the business families that has helped to build our community. I've talked about it a lot on the show. I'll just use this as a reminder again to shop local, support local, get your elbows up, whatever you want to call it. There are myriad reasons to support the local businesses in our community. And families like the Flanagans and so many others we got to see in that room last night have helped to build the community that we continue to enjoy today. And let me just add to that. There is room to continue that growth so that we can continue to enjoy this community as we grow to 1 million people in the next 25 years or so. Just put that out there for you. These are some routes that we can continue to extend from the families that helped get us to the point that we're at and the families that will help us get to that next milestone of 1 million people in the next 25 years. But congratulations to the very deserving Flanagan family for their recognition last night. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. #1, Prime Minister Mark Carney set to meet with his new cabinet this morning on Parliament Hill. He shook that cabinet up yesterday by moving some key players into new positions and promoting 24 new faces in a movement to signal change at the top. Overall, Carney has named 28 full ministers to his cabinet and also appointed a second tier of 10 secretaries of state. We're talking about that new cabinet on the show this morning in about 5 minutes' time. #2, an analysis shows that changing Canada's electoral system could break regional strongholds held by both major federal parties. MQO Research took poll-level results from last month's general election and ran them through a proportional representation model, assigning seats in each province based on the popular vote. Under such a system, and according to the votes Canadians cast using the existing process, Alberta would not be as solidly blue. Nova Scotia also would not be overwhelmingly red. And the NDP? Well, they wouldn't be losing official party status in the House of Commons. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, 6 detached houses in Waterloo will be demolished to make way for a 6-story, 140-unit student apartment building. The new rentals will be built at Albert and Hemlock Streets, where several other student apartments have been built. Number 4, Wellington County residents can breathe a sigh of relief. Staff are recommending no additional automated speed camera locations at this time. The county has received just under $2.5 million in automated speed enforcement revenue so far this year, which is well above the $1 million in annual revenue that was originally anticipated. To the end of April, staff said vehicle speed has reduced on average by 17%, while vehicles traveling at or lower than the posted speed limit have increased 66%. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, YKF marks its 75th anniversary this year. The region of Waterloo International Airport opened its doors in 1950, growing to what the region calls, quote, a regional airfield to a vital hub supporting economic development, tourism, trade, and community growth by connecting Waterloo Region to the world. The airport's 75th anniversary will be celebrated with an open house on June the 14th. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. A quick break. When we come back, how about that new cabinet? Same as the old cabinet? How much different is it anyway? We'll get into the details coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Our new Prime Minister has named his new cabinet, but is it really all? I mean, I guess it's somewhat new. But there are also familiar faces returning to work with Mark Carney and deal with an increasingly hostile neighbor to the south, as well as stimulating our economy here at home. Peter Wollstonecroft is a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo, joins us to talk more about it. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you make of the cabinet that Prime Minister Carney has assembled?
Well, in Canada, we live in the land of monster cabinets. And so this is at the norm when you think of the cabinet ministers and these new secretaries, almost 40. It's a lot of people. So there's a lot of performance here. And by that I mean I think there's a lot of optics. And the real question is, who will sit on the Priorities and Planning Committee? Who sits on the Operations Committee? So there's always layers of influence. The least influential are the backbenchers. And at the center are the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, people like that. They will meet, they will decide. Sometimes people say to me, well, we need to have people at the cabinet table. Well, I think there is a cabinet table. I don't know for sure, but there'll be a picture of the cabinet in some place. But they never meet to discuss things. It's impossible to make decisions with 35 or 40 people. So you have to have 5 or 6 or 7 people sit in a small room with some staff support, and they discuss whatever is deemed important to discuss. So that's what's going on here. There's always in our system since the 50s, a concentration of power in the hands of the few, the Prime Minister and certain important cabinet ministers. And the rest of it basically doesn't matter for very much. ministers of bakeries and cemeteries, basically.
There are some, as I mentioned, Peter, familiar names still within this cabinet. Anita Anand, Francois Philippe Champagne, Sean Fraser, who wasn't going to run and then decided to run again and now makes his way right back into cabinet. Stephen Guilbeault, Chrystia Freeland, Dominic LeBlanc. I could go on with a handful more. Is this enough of a departure for the new Liberal leader and Prime Minister from his predecessor?
Well, the public will decide, but there were a lot of people dropped. I think the number is 11, and that's a very remarkably large number, I think, historically. I think it's also noteworthy that there were a lot of new people appointed to the cabinet. Also, a lot of the new people were newly elected. And so they're barely 1 month into being an MP. None of them probably haven't been sworn in yet. And so that's a big job because not only do you have to find where the washrooms are, you have to find out who's working in your office, what are they doing. And so in that sense, it is a big change. I'm not surprised. We have to remember, if Mark Carney had his druthers, he'd say, okay, we have an enormous budget in this country. We have an enormous number of issues to deal with. I want to find the 35 best people in the country to deal with these issues. Very few of them would have been elected to the House of Commons 3 weeks ago. So he has a narrow pool to draw upon. So my point is, of course, he's going to go with experienced people, and he has no choice. He has to deal with people who have experience dealing with the different files, and know how to work with the bureaucracy, know how to work as a political team, and also have the capacity to deal with the caucus. There's going to be a lot of angry people, or I'll put it this way, disappointed people. Almost all those MPs elected on the Liberal side have ambitions. Many of them would like to think, I'll be the next Prime Minister. And then if they're not in the cabinet, well, then their hopes are somewhat diminished, right? So they're not happy. So somebody has to deal with caucus management. Those are political skills that are rare. You also have to find people who can force the bureaucracy to change its habits. And we'll see what happens in the Department of Defense, which I think is one of the worst departments in Canada for being heavily managed by bureaucrats, and takes an enormous amount of time to change the color of the pencils.
I will acknowledge and admit, Peter, that I'm a generally crabby sort these days, and I have been bemoaning the fact that yet again Waterloo Region finds itself absent from the cabinet table here. And I've also been told, you need good timber to build a good cabinet.
Yeah, so you're quoting John A. Macdonald now.
However, what the heck? Why can't we get a seat at the cabinet table? We are the 10th largest municipality in this country. We're an economic engine. Do we not matter enough?
Well, PEI gets one all the time. New Brunswick, Newfoundland, all those places get. Not Southwestern Ontario. I'll go beyond Waterloo Region, though I take your point. But I would say to the people who are concerned about this in Waterloo Region, well, excuse me, how many Liberals were elected in Waterloo Region? 2. And so that's not enough. We had 3 Conservatives, and they're not going to be in the cabinet. Look at Southwest Ontario. As far as I can tell, there's only one person, and that's, what's her name, Ariel Karabaga, who's the House leader and the minister in charge of democratic institutions. She's from London West. Southwest Ontario tends to be a black hole in terms of cabinet representation, both federally and provincially. There are some minor exceptions here and there, like Mike Harris Jr. But Southwest Ontario gets overlooked, has for quite a while. But there are people from Northern Ontario. Every province has, and that's why one of the reasons why the cabinet is so large. Every province has to have somebody. The north has 3 people, or northern parts of provinces, and the north itself. British Columbia has a fair number. The people in Quebec are not happy because they're not equal to Ontario. The pressures are enormous. And every interest group in the country wants to have somebody, quote-unquote, having a seat at the cabinet table. And my question is, well, that's great. How large is your budget? And I suspect a lot of those cabinet ministers, lower order ones, are doing their own typing.
Peter, as always, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for the call.
Peter,
have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Peter Wollstonecroft is a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo. And I always appreciate Peter Wollstonecroft's perspective on things. And I take his point that across southwestern Ontario, you find this black hole of cabinet ministers. I'll remind you, though, too, this extends back into previous governments. The Stephen Harper government, yes, Gary Goodyear, when he was an MP in Cambridge, was a minister of state. Okay, big flippin' deal, says the crabby guy here on the microphone today. See, Spandau Ballet that started the show already worn off. I'm cranky again. The hell? I know Bardish Chagger had a couple of, roles in cabinet briefly. It just... Maybe the perception is that we have all the population and everything really is decided upon through the lens of this massive part of Canada's population. But I would like to see us have a seat at the cabinet table. That's all. I recognize in this government only 2 Liberal MPs re-elected, but there were 4 last time. Or was it all 5? Did we sweep it? Kitchener, South Hespeler, Cambridge, Kitchener-Conestoga, Waterloo. Kitchener Centre was green. But 4 of the 5 in the last time. And prior to that, there was lots of blue when blue was in power. So why don't we get a seat at the cabinet table? I don't know. How big is your budget, as Peter points out? What do you make of the new cabinet? Is it new enough for you? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is called the Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smart Act. I want to know who the Minister of Legislation names is in Ontario. Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smart Act. It includes from the province a commitment to standardize the fees municipalities make developers pay. It promises to block cities from charging developers for requirements outside the provincial building code, and it pledges to bring uniformity to road construction rules. Makes perfect sense, right? That's what the province is proposing. How does the opposition feel? We'll find out next as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio. New legislation announced Monday by our provincial government here in Ontario promises to build faster and smarter. I know it promises to do that, the legislation, because that's the name of it. Protect Ontario by building faster and smarter. Mike Schreiner is the MPP representing Guelph, also the leader of Ontario's Greens, and he joins us for a conversation. Mr. Schreiner, good morning.
Hey, Mike, good morning.
What's your reaction to what was tabled by the province or announced by the province on Monday, building faster and smarter?
With all due respect to the minister, I just think this bill does not meet the moment, Mike. We're in the biggest housing crisis we've had in generations in Ontario. Housing starts are at historic lows. Down 46% in March alone. Housing prices are at unprecedented heights, and the government puts forward a bill that tinkers around the edges, makes a few changes that, I think will make some difference, but it doesn't meet the moment of the crisis that we're in. And I think it's because the premier, for whatever reason, just refuses to listen to the most important recommendations from his own housing affordability task force. And that would be to legalize gentle density and missing middle housing. What is that? 4plexes, 4-story as of right across the province, and 6 to 11-story as of right along major transit and transportation corridors in our larger urban centers. That is the fastest, least expensive way we can quickly ramp up housing supply to build homes that people can afford in the communities they know and love, where we already have infrastructure in place. But for whatever reason, the premier refuses to do it. And the other thing the government refuses to do is just admit that we need to have the government back at the table providing government-assisted, deeply affordable nonprofit co-op and supportive housing, because 93% of our deeply affordable homes were built before 1995. That's when the provincial and federal government stopped providing financial assistance for that kind of housing. Those are the kinds of bold measures that housing activists, builders, academics, and other housing experts say are needed if we're going to solve this crisis.
So you mentioned, Mr. Schreiner, that you don't believe what the Ford government is doing here meets the moment. Is this gentle density, low to medium rise buildings that you're talking about, is that what meets the moment?
Well, what meets the moment is making it easier and faster and cheaper for that kind of housing to be built. And that means legalizing it, getting rid of the red tape that's delaying it. Another one is the government, I'll just give you another example here related to that, is the Ontario Greens have been calling for removing development charges on starter homes for first-time home buyers built within existing urban areas to help people save up to, possibly $140,000 a year. Replace that money for municipalities with funds from the provincial government, so municipalities have the money to invest in that infrastructure, so we don't have to, we don't take it off of the cost off of new home buyers and putting onto existing home owners. Again, government refuses to do that, so they fiddle around a little bit, make a few changes to development charges, which will help reduce costs for new home construction. But again, it's not the bold change we need to beat this moment. And I think one of the reasons the government in this particular bill, and even in the Conservative government's platform in the most recent election, they've just sort of dropped their goal of building 1.5 million homes. I think they know they're not going to reach that goal. And so they've just kind of given up on bold legislation to help solve the crisis. And they're going to continue to just tinker around the edges, doing some things that will help, but not meet the moment.
What are those pieces of red tape that are inhibiting us from building the homes that we need?
Yeah, so Housing Affordability Task Force has said this. Home builders, developers, housing advocates I talk to say this. If we would pass the bill I put forward to legalize 6 to 11-story buildings along major transit and transportation corridors in urban areas, that would cut development times in half and be the fastest way we could quickly build homes that people can afford either to own or rent, where we already have infrastructure in place. So that's one. The other one is, legalize fourplexes and four-story as of right across the province. That's the cheapest way and the fastest way to quickly increase housing supply, and housing supply that especially first-time home buyers and young families can afford. Removing the development charges on starter homes, which could save new home buyers up to $140,000 on the purchase of a new home, while making sure we keep municipalities whole so they can continue to invest in the infrastructure to unlock housing. Getting government back into building deeply affordable homes. Those are the kinds of bold measures that, Scotiabank is calling for, housing activists are calling for, home builders are calling for, the government's own hand-picked Housing Affordability Task Force is calling for. And for whatever reason, the Premier just continues to say no.
Where I'm struggling with this, Mr. Schreiner, is right here in the region of Waterloo, for example. We have had both municipalities, Kitchener and Waterloo, saying absolutely yes to fourplexes as of right. I'm pretty sure Guelph has done that as well.
They have.
Okay,
yes, absolutely.
So, right, and we've got this incredible initiative here that I'm a big fan of called the Build Now Initiative, which was launched in the summer of 2023, so almost 2 years ago now. The city of Waterloo came forward with a big parcel of land to help build some of these affordable, attainable homes. I haven't seen one, Mr. Schreiner, not one. Like, something's got to be getting in the way here, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you are. Like, I know in Guelph, we're starting to see a number of fourplexes being built. So we are definitely seeing movement in our city in that regard. And I have toured some in Kitchener as well, so I know it's happening. But this is where I keep saying, Mike, when you ask me about one specific area and I respond with about 5 areas of the housing continuum that we need to address. And the reason is one solution is not going to solve this. There is no silver bullet to solve this crisis. That's exactly why we need multiple bold solutions across the entire housing continuum, from having government-assisted, deeply affordable, nonprofit, co-op, and supportive housing, to building missing middle housing and legalizing gentle density and missing middle housing, to lowering development charges on starter homes built within existing urban boundaries, and ensuring that the province is providing the infrastructure funding municipalities need. We need all those kinds of changes along the continuum if we're going to solve this. Doing it in one area alone will not fix the crisis. And so that's why I'm saying we need bold action, and why I'm saying this bill doesn't meet the moment.
Mr. Schreiner, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thanks for being here.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime, Mike.
Mike Schreiner is the leader of the Ontario Greens, and he makes it clear, because I heard the phrase a number of times in that conversation, this bill, Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter, does not meet the moment. What does meet the moment? What is it that seems to be holding us back from getting homes built? It seems to me that we talk about it all the time. It's become the stuff of cliche, hasn't it? Red tape. But I feel as though we have got so many hoops for people to jump through in order to get housing built. We talk about it and talk about it. I'm going to reference again the Build Now initiative, which I think I still maintain is fantastic. It's got all the right people at the table. So why, almost 2 years from the time that was announced, do we not have a single of those 10,000 affordable, attainable homes built? What is getting in the way? I can't help but think bureaucracy is a massive part of it. But I'd love to hear your perspective. You might be closer to it than I. What is holding us back from getting homes built more quickly? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
One of the reasons the government in this particular bill, and even in the Conservative government's platform in the most recent election, they've just sort of dropped their goal of building 1.5 million homes. I think they know they're not going to reach that goal, and so they've just kind of given up on bold legislation to help solve the crisis, and they're going to continue to just tinker around the edges, doing some things that will help but not meet the moment.
Mike Schreiner is the leader of the Ontario Green Party, also, of course, the MPP who represents Guelph. The Building Faster and Smarter Act does not meet the moment, says Mr. Schreiner. What the act pledges to do is standardize the fees that municipalities make developers pay, those DCs or development charges. It promises to block cities from charging developers for requirements that go outside the provincial building code. And the act also pledges to bring uniformity to road construction rules. It sounds pretty good on the surface, but when I start drilling down, I find myself frustrated. We talk and have been talking for quite some time about the housing crisis that we are in the midst of. So I, quite frankly, expect to walk around every street corner in this region. Remember, as a region, 70,000 new homes by 2031. And I can tell you that the statistics show that we are well behind that pace. So given what we're supposed to be building, I expect to walk around every street corner and see a construction site. And I don't. And I just want to, what is it that's holding us back? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Chris, good morning.
Hey, Mike. To me, I believe nobody wants to lose money. City doesn't want to lose money. Builders don't want to lose money. And explain to me, what is an affordable home? 500,000, 400,000, 300,000? 700,000? Is that an affordable home? What is an affordable home?
I think you're onto something here, Chris, when you talk about...
Right. what is an affordable? When in 1995, I built my own, my first house. It cost me $200,000. To me, that's an affordable home.
Affordability is defined, and we tend to go with this ratio now as 30% of one's income spent on shelter costs. So if you...
So $300,000 if you make $100,000.
No, $300,000 if your mortgage payment or your payment for shelter should not be more than 30% of your income. So, yeah, I guess,
right.
Yeah, should not be more than 30%. So if you're bringing home $100,000, you shouldn't be spending more than $30,000 on shelter for the year.
Right.
So that works out, what are we talking about? 15, no, more about 2,500 a month.
That's about a $500,000 home.
Okay. So $500,000 home is what we're going to settle on.
Is that affordable? To a lot of these kids, it's not.
I hear you. Yep.
Right. So, yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
All right, Chris, appreciate that. Listen, we get bogged down in this a lot, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but yes, what is affordable and what's affordable to me will be different from what's affordable to you. And we remember the study that came out at one point last year that says in this region now, if you want to if you want to be able to afford based on the prices of homes, you need a household income. It was north of 190. I want to say 194, but I'm comfortable or confident saying off the top of my head more than $190,000 household income in order to afford a home in this community. Just imagine. Well above the 100K that Chris and I just used. But what Chris is getting at here is that it seems to me that the tail kind of wags the dog. The market is defining this for us as opposed to the other way around, because nobody wants to lose money, as Chris rightly points out. Cities don't want to lose money, developers, builders don't want to lose money, etc. So it's all about the market. And we know that some sites where housing has been approved will sit idle until the market conditions are such that the builder can make the profit they want on it. And I'm not begrudging anybody their profit, but somewhere, some way along the line here, we have to get to actually building, because there doesn't seem to be enough of that actually happening. Brad, good morning.
Great chat. Thanks, Mike. It's been a while since I've called in. It's interesting because when we first bought our first place, would have been 1999, that ratio was actually 25%. So 25% of your income should go to shelter, mortgage, all the stuff related to it. We were in a condo, so we had condo fees, blah, 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 right? So
Sure.
It was 25%. Now they're saying that's 30%. What's it going to be like 20 years from now? It's going to be 35%, right? Secondly is kind of have a bit of a lens to this. My dad used to own a mortgage company, and he dealt with this all the time. And when you look at new builds, housing, the cost, of course, you're paying all those trades to do that, has gone up exponentially, right? So faster than what people can actually afford. So that plays into this as well. So, I'm not sure what the solution is here. I'm with you. Every day I drive past a neighborhood, I'm like, what? There's an open field there. Why isn't there building going on there?
Exactly. It's crazy, but that's what we're wired to think now.
Yeah. There's a lot around here. It's like, what the heck is going on here, right? And I look at my kids. I got 3 kids. You know what? Like, are they ever going to be able to afford, even if we help them out, are they ever going to be able to afford to have a house? I mean, sure, you could move to, let's say, Listowel or something like that, or somewhere north, but of course the jobs aren't there, right?
Absolutely.
But if they want to stay in this area, are they ever going to be able to afford a house, or are they going to be living with us for a while?
Make room in the basement, Brad.
Yeah, already do. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate your call, too. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. a good conversation to start our day around housing and how to get more of it built more quickly. Steve, Andre, we're out of time for calls now, but please put a mark in it and come back at noon when we open phone lines for Talkback. Would love to pick up on this as we have our open line hour at that time. Right now, I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then Tom Korski, the managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter, joins us, minding Ottawa's business on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I am some kind of riled up today, which is a perfect day to check in with our friend Tom Korski, who's the managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter. Mr. Korski, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
One of the things that's got me a little riled up, Tom, I'm not going to lie to you. I think, in fact, I'm almost certain during this most recent election campaign, we were promised change. And I don't feel as though we necessarily got that with this quote-unquote new cabinet unveiled yesterday. Do you think this is the change that Canadians voted for?
Well, the problem he has is the Prime Minister, his problem, is he wants to get representation from all across the country, but he doesn't want to give up the control. For instance, for the first time in many years, there's a Liberal MP from Saskatchewan. Wow. They finally elected a Liberal MP. There's your Minister of Agriculture. No, they gave that new Liberal MP from Northern Saskatchewan, very junior, frankly. You know, he's like Secretary of State for small engine repair. So this is the problem. If you want to go with the football analogy, if you want the strong team, then you're going to have to give up a little control. And I got to tell you, Prime Minister's offices just don't enjoy doing that. They really don't. That makes them hot and angry.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm sure you have noticed as well as I that this centralization of power within the Prime Minister's office is something that just continues to increase.
It's stupefying. It is so bad. I can tell you that, for instance, the Privy Council office, which is the head of the bureaucracy, these are really the cabinet aides. They have on permanent retainer, and I mean permanent, yearly contracts with pollsters. These contracts are worth typically $1.9 to $2.5 million a year. What do these consultants do, these pollsters? They have focus groups. Month after month after month, they are holding focus groups, and they ask ordinary Canadians, how are we doing? What do you think about climate change? What about small engine repair? How are we doing on small engines? In the olden days, Mike, that was called your caucus. If you wanted to know how you're doing in Southwest Ontario, you'd walk into caucus and talk to your members from Southwest, and they'd say, not too hot on that carbon tax, boss. They don't even talk to their caucus. If you want to forget the Maytag repairman, you want the loneliest man in Ottawa, it's a Liberal backbencher. It's been that way for years. It
certainly has, and it's frustrating as all get out. Okay, I know, Tom, that partisans are going to partisan. I get it, and we may well be hyper-partisan these days. I understand that. But please tell me that Neil MacDonald did not, in his partisan attack against the Conservatives, invoke the name of Adolf Hitler.
He actually did. Mr. MacDonald is a former CBC pundit, and he is married to a former CTV reporter, Joyce Napier, who was appointed last year as our ambassador to Vatican City. Many Canadians are unaware that we even had an ambassador to Vatican City. Since we have an ambassador to Rome, who's just 6 blocks away, it pays about $200,000 a year. Mr. MacDonald is now a public office holder under the Conflict of Interest Act. He lives in public housing, albeit, like an Italian villa. It's pretty sweet. And what he did was, he started, whether it was boredom, he started writing self-published commentaries. And he has a lot of opinions. What's with the Hitler business? Funny you should mention. He is describing the opposition leaders' media relations. And in a break of an IQ test you might call never talk about Hitler unless you're discussing Second World War battles or the Holocaust, what did he say? Mr. MacDonald wrote, I quote him, there have been, of course, Hitler comparisons. I'm guessing Hitler's treatment of journalists was somewhat harsher, but whatever, end of quote, said our VIP in Vatican City. He's really something.
That's putting it so kindly, Tom. Well done by you. I have different words in my mind right now, Mr. Korski. I do. I loved your reporting on the Winnipeg Free Press, and I'm not trying to pick on the Free Press. However, I don't mean that. I mean the Winnipeg Free Press, not the Free Press generally. But what I like about this piece is that we talk an awful lot about funding for the CBC and government subsidy and the bias that might come inherent with that. But the Winnipeg Free Press, of all newspaper publications now, Tom, is talking about the uncertainty of the political landscape and how that is impacting the newspaper industry.
If anyone wondered what was the corrosiveness, what was the impact of media subsidies, and by the way, the rebates are substantial. These are payroll rebates that are given to publishers who apply and are approved by the Minister of Canada Revenue. What are those rebates worth? $30,000 a year per newsroom employee. You find me a small business in Canada that couldn't use $30,000 a year per employee in federal rebates just because they love you. And that's what the newspaper publishers cooked up. The Winnipeg Free Press, my 2 cents, I'm from Manitoba. It's the worst newspaper in the English-speaking world. I merely say that as a former reader. What did they say in a note to shareholders after they received $2.8 million in federal corporate welfare last year? They told their shareholders, I quote, "The uncertainty of the political landscape continues to impact the newspaper industry, the impact of which may necessitate cost reduction initiatives, etc." The point was, if the Conservatives get elected, we're dead. How is that for a perfect Vulcan mind meld between corporate welfare publishers and a certain political party and propaganda? We told them, we warned them, Mike, no one listens. Don't take the subsidies. You have no integrity. No one listens.
And here we are talking about this today. Vulcan mind melt. You don't mind if I use that at other points during the show today?
I didn't invent it. Please, sure.
Tom, keep up the great work. Always enjoy the chats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter. I recommend blacklocks.ca. Lots of interesting stuff there. And really, Tom and the team do excellent work. I just want to add one little footnote to this, if I may, connected to that last story about subsidization in media. We all know about it. It's been talked about. You've called and criticized on the show, and that's fine. Like, I get it. I have said many a time that I'm still waiting for my check as a quote-unquote bought-off member of the mainstream media. But again, a footnote here on this story. Last week, the 108, I believe that to be the number, it was certainly north of 100 media outlets and or conglomerates that were that received funding under the federal subsidy. Okay, so more than 100, nary a nickel, nary one nickel to Rogers Communications, Rogers Media, etc. Just a little footnote. Take it for what it's worth. They say everybody has a price. I haven't found mine yet. I guess, and Rogers maybe hasn't found it. I don't know what the criteria is in all of this, but you get the story from Tom Korski, a Blacklocks reporter, about the Winnipeg Free Press in the more than 100 media outlets granted some level of subsidy last week. Rogers was not among them. Just a footnote for you as we continue this morning with the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. One week from this Saturday at Binghamans in Kitchener, it will be the inaugural Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest Waterloo Region Women's Expo. 1 week from this Saturday, making it May the 24th. Tracy Van Kalsbeek is the executive director at KW Oktoberfest, joins the program. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, but come on, you're 10 days away from a huge event. How are you?
Yes, we are. We are excited. Like you were just saying, this is the very first time that we've hosted the Women's Expo. And folks maybe remember there used to be the Total Woman Show back in the day. I think Metroland had run that, and there hasn't been anything like it since. And, I know I was on chatting a couple of weeks ago about our Women of the Year event. It's our 50th anniversary, and part of that 50th anniversary was us coming up with the idea that we're going to host an expo. And here we are.
Here we are indeed. And quite the lineup of speakers you have announced for the expo next Saturday, Tracy.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. We've got Amy Ballantyne. We've got Colleen James, Alan Winter, Tricia Mumby. These are all fantastic speakers and have such a great story to share with folks. And then we have all these breakout sessions. I think we have 20 some odd of them. And on various different topics. Like, there's got to be something for everybody there. And then 80 some odd vendors, too. Like, it's going to be an amazing day, Mike.
What are we hoping to do with this inaugural event, Tracy? You mentioned it kind of follows along with some tradition, but as we break into some new ground here, what are we hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I think what it really does is it expands our community's ability to celebrate women's success and achievements and their contributions to our community. And we know that, with 50 years of doing Women of the Year and how that event has grown exponentially over the last, 10 years, that there is really a place for this and it's needed in our community. And I have to say, Mike, one of my favorite memories last year, and I've been in this role for a year and a half or whatever, but one of my favorite memories last year was standing in the room at Women of the Year with the vibe and the buzz of everybody there that were just there to celebrate each other and, giving each other a hand up. It was so amazing, and I just want to recreate that every day. But if we can do that with the Expo as well as the Women of the Year, that would be fantastic.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And you paint a great picture. Is there still an opportunity, Tracy, for folks to get involved? Tickets available for the Women's Expo?
There are. The tickets are $15, but we have a promo right now. If people put in Expo 2420, then they can get 2 tickets for $20. And you can find all of that information on our website. If you go to Women of the Year, you'll see the Women's Expo too. That all the information is right there with the agendas and the speakers and the lineups and all of those things.
Excellent. I will point you to womenoftheyear.ca, women, W-O-M-E-N, plural, womenoftheyear.ca. You'll find the information there. The inaugural Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest Waterloo Region Women's Expo is a week Saturday, the 24th at Binghamans. While I've got you, Tracy, before I let you go, I cannot let this slide past because I'm pretty sure I saw Tante Frida counting it down. It might have been Uncle Hans. I was scrolling quickly, but somebody's counting down. And is it tomorrow, Tracy? Is it tomorrow that Oktoberfest tickets are going on sale?
It is tomorrow that Oktoberfest tickets are going on sale to the public. So yes, you'll want to get out there and get your tickets real quick because we know that our fest halls fill up really, really fast. So, look for the information that's coming out and get your tickets. You just go to oktoberfest.ca tickets, and you'll find all the information that you need about all the different fest halls and what's available.
I saw at an event I was at recently, forgive me, I'm forgetting which one, but there was an auction prize from KW Oktoberfest with 4 tickets to Concordia on the last night of Oktoberfest, which we know is always one of the big events. So I guess it just goes to show, Tracy, that Oktoberfest is a year-round tradition now.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, it sure is for me. It definitely is, especially with the Women of the Year and the Women's Expo happening in May. And then, honestly, it's been so amazing to be here at Oktoberfest. And lots of requests come in throughout the year where there are conferences coming, and people just want that taste of Oktoberfest that's well known for our region, And we'll bring our teams out, and we'll do a keg tapping. Uncle Hans, Tante Frida, they come out to visit. Our new ambassador, our new president. How many people know that Chef D has stepped into the presidential role at Oktoberfest? So, yeah, we bring the party, and we do it well.
I know Chef D has stepped into that role because he makes me call him El Presidente now.
Oh, he does not. I will talk to him.
Okay,
I'm just kidding.
straighten that guy out. Tell him to put on some pants, too. Always walking around in shorts.
I think he owns one pair of pants. He told me he loves his shorts.
He certainly does.
Husband.
That's true. He's perfect for the role. He's perfect for the role. Tracy, thanks for this. Have a great Expo in 10 days' time, and I'm sure we'll find reason to talk again soon.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tracy Van Kalsbeek is the executive director of Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest. The inaugural Waterloo Region Women's Expo happens 10 days from now, a week Saturday, the 24th of May, at Binghamton's. You can still get tickets through womenoftheyear.ca, and Oktoberfest tickets for all of your favorite Festhallen go on sale tomorrow. Oktoberfest.ca will point you in the direction of those. It's mid-May, and we're already talking about late September and into October. Gemütlichkeit, Prost, and off we go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm hearing some rumblings. About a rather large piece of news for our community, and I'm going to let you in on what I know right after this. Stay with it. It's important, I promise. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a development, an update, I guess might be the best way of putting it, in one of the biggest stories in our region of late. And that update will be coming later today. One of, if not the biggest stories in our community today is the Wilmot Land Assembly. You may recall that I asked aloud the question yesterday, now that Honda is scaling back its plans in Alliston, Ontario, around electric vehicles and an expansion of their production facilities in Alliston. What does that mean for our land assembly here in the region of Waterloo? Because the rumors continue to swirl that this is an industrial mega site being assembled for probably something connected to the EV industry in the future. So what becomes of our land assembly when we see EV progress being stalled or paused across Ontario? Well, we're getting an update from the region of Waterloo later today. Do I know what that update will contain? I have a pretty good idea, I think. I've been talking to a few people and hearing a few things, but we'll just leave it at the fact that there will be an update provided by the region this afternoon, and we will, of course, be a part of that update. So I encourage you to tune in to All News Afternoons today with Aaron Anderson and Paul McPhee, because the moment we have information by way of this update on the Wilmot Land Assembly, we will share it with you on this radio station, because that's what we're here to do, provide you the information on the stories that matter to our community. And I'm not sure there's a story that has had more time in the news over the past 6 months or so, maybe to a year, than the Wilmot Land Assembly. We're going to be getting an update on that later today, and you will hear it here on 570 News Radio. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Turn it up!
We are having ourselves a big old party here on the show this morning, and I, for one, am absolutely here for it. Let's celebrate some more sustainable actions, this time in the tourism and travel space. Tova Davidson is with us again, the Executive Director of Sustainable Waterloo Region. The evening of recognition last Thursday, Tova, and now we get a chance to celebrate all of those that you celebrated at your event last Thursday evening.
It's just an amazing opportunity. Thanks so much for having us all here, Mike.
It's an absolute pleasure. All of us includes Jennifer Eddings, who's the Director of Business Development with Explore Waterloo Region. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Alistair Scorgie is here, Director of Sport Hosting with Explore Waterloo Region. Alistair, good to see you. Good morning.
You too, Mike. It's been too long.
It really has, hasn't it? I'm glad to have you here. And speaking of too long, Guy Exley, come on with your coming on. How long has it been since we've had a conversation, sir?
It's been a while, but I listen to you every day, so I feel like it was only yesterday.
Those one-way conversations. I'm really good in those ones, but it's good to get you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
And Kelly Fields is with us as well. Kelly is with Field Trips, a tour operator, and Kelly is also responsible for me not being as prepared for the show as I should have been today. Because I was at fieldstrips.ca, Kelly. I want to go to all the places, please. Can I go to all of them?
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you do, and thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you for having us.
So, Tova, I'll start with you, if I may, please, because what we're talking about here is the recognition of a Partnership of the Year with Sustainable Waterloo Region, as recognized at last Thursday's Evening of Recognition. Obviously, lots to get into here, plenty of meat on this bone. But when Sustainable Waterloo Region looks at this Partnership of the Year, what led to this group being recognized?
Well, I have to say that I think a lot of this started actually with conversations between Jennifer and I. And Jennifer is an incredible advocate for sustainability in the tourism sector, much broader than Waterloo Region. And she had this amazing vision and reached out to us about how we could collaboratively move the sector forward towards sustainability to attract more events, to attract more visitors, to bring big sporting events to the community. And so when we look at this, this is a small sampling, actually, of the partnership that was recognized. There's a whole list of other organizations that are also part of this, but we are working collaboratively towards real measurement, real reductions, offsets, and actually doing that good work of being different than any other and better than any other destination.
So, Jennifer, let me throw it over your way. What inspired this initial conversation with Tova and Sustainable Waterloo Region, where Explore Waterloo Region thought, hey, maybe there's something we can do here?
Thanks, Mike. So this dates back to 2021. My role is to attract meetings and conferences to the region. So we had won the opportunity to host the CanSpec conference, which was going to take place the tail end of the pandemic at the Welper Hotel. And it was actually one of the event planners that was sat on that organizing committee, Natalie Lowe, who basically challenged myself, the destination, the hotel, and asked about our sustainability initiatives. And she had a lofty goal of wanting to track and measure the event. I knew zilch about sustainability, other than I compost at home and try to stay away from single-use plastics at the time. So I reached out to Tova Davidson, and she just gave me a big old green hug and brought me into the fold. And that's where the conversation started.
I find that so interesting because I think the perspective you share there, Jennifer, is one that we can all relate to, right? I recycle, I separate my papers from my plastics, we divert waste at home too through composting, etc. So how did that initial green hug, as you describe it, from Tova lead you to this Partnership of the Year? How easy was that process? Or difficult?
You know what? Honestly, Mike, it was very easy. I feel very fortunate that our CEO and that our board at Explore Waterloo Region, I wrote a strategy and they accepted it and they funded it. They put money behind it. So, I think what was interesting was I had no idea what resources were available to us locally and through Sustainable Waterloo Region. So really, once that partnership was formed, Tova and her team do a lot of the heavy lifting for us.
Guy Exley, through impact events and something like RibFest, how does that fit under this umbrella?
Well, we started with RibFest. We started a green program in 2016, trying to divert waste, because you can imagine the amount of waste we generate in a 3-day weekend. And we've had pretty good success with that. So, last year we diverted about 72% of our waste, and that equates to about 4 tons of waste that did not go to waste or landfill and went into composting mostly and some recycling. So when the opportunity and I've been a member of Explore Waterloo Region for a number of years. So when the opportunity presented itself to partner with or to join Sustainable Waterloo Region, I jumped at it because and since I've joined less than a year ago, the network I've met, the people I've met, like they said, with like Kelly or Jennifer said, with the green hug from Tova. I mean, it's just been so eye-opening and rewarding to expand my own knowledge of what's possible and the resources that are out there. And we're looking at what else can we do with RibFest and events in general, but particularly RibFest, what else can we do? And it's just, we're continually trying to push that envelope, and Sustainable Waterloo Region is giving us that knowledge and those resources.
Why? I mean, and I ask that because you mentioned this is an event, and we can imagine how much waste was generated. I think we all can understand that, having visited RibFest before. You could just be, an events stager, promoter, et cetera, and just move on. Why is this something that you decided was important, Guy?
It's just the right thing to do. I mean, I live in this community. As you all said, I do compost and recycle at home, and it's just I've got 20-year-old kids, or kids that are in their 20s, and they're when you look at the election, and their whole focus is the environment. Climate change is the number one topic for them. So it's I hear it on both sides, and it's just the right thing to do. Now, as far as a business goes, I invest financially to make this happen. So it costs quite a bit of staffing and signage and all those things, infrastructure to put in place for RibFest to be able to compost and recycle. But I feel it's a good investment. I feel that the goodwill that it generates pays back more than. I mean, it's hard to measure exactly the financial impact, but it's just the right thing to do, and I think it pays off.
Guy Exley with Impact Events, Jennifer Eddings and Alistair Scorgie with Explore Waterloo Region, and Kelly Fields with Field Trips, a tour operator, along with Tova Davidson from Sustainable Waterloo Region, with us on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. There's more branches on this tree, and we'll get to them right after this quick timeout. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Last Thursday evening, Sustainable Waterloo Region held its annual Evening of Recognition, the partnership of the year with Explore Waterloo Region. From there, Jennifer Eddings, the Director of Business Development, and Alistair Scorgie, Director of Sport Hosting, with us this morning. Guy Exley with Impact Events, running RibFest in our region. And Kelly Fields with Fields Trips, a tour operator, along with Tova Davidson from Sustainable Waterloo Region. Alistair, I'd like to swing it over your way, if I could. We joked earlier, it's been far too long. You and I have been talking a fair bit lately. The 2026 Ontario Summer Games are coming to our community. The big Call of Duty Championships in Kitchener in, about a month now. So you better, I'm sure you're going to go right back to work when we're done talking today. But how do you host events like this? How do you present or pitch events like this under that sustainability umbrella?
Well, I think it's been one of the shifts in major events in the last, call it 10 to 15 years, where more and more we are being asked as a host community, what are the other things that we're doing to make the event have a positive impact? So it's less of a transactional approach to events of dollars in, dollars out, and more, is this good for the environment? Is this good for sport? Is this good for community engagement? And sustainability is a big part of that. Obviously, when we're talking about events like the Ontario Summer Games, the Ontario Volleyball Championships, they have a huge impact on the community. We're talking about huge numbers of people. I think we just finished the Ontario Volleyball Championships this April. Generally, that's about 45,000 visitors throughout the month to our community that are staying in hotels, using transportation, consuming food, using our facilities. So really the work that we've been doing with Sustainable Waterloo Region is, how do we start to reduce that impact? A, from the events, but B, from the facilities that we use for sport, which generally have high utility usage. They're using a lot of water, a lot of natural gas, a lot of power. They run 24/7 and they never get turned off. So it really is just a long-term effort to try and do a better job, take better care of our community, better care of the environment, and have those events have a positive impact.
Is our ability to do this, Alistair, part of the reason that our region is increasingly attractive to large events like this? Because Jennifer mentioned earlier, it started with really, what is our hotel space doing, for example?
Yeah, I think it separates us. At the end of the day, when we're bidding to host events, we're bidding against a lot of communities that are comparable. We all have a lot of the same infrastructure. Everyone's got a junior hockey arena in Ontario, right? We've all got the same types of hotels. And so how do we stand out? How do we be different? How do we be more attractive? And when we're working with provincial, national sport bodies and other partners, they also want to be part of something that is good for the community, good for the world. And this adds another layer that we can highlight and say it's not just about sport, it's about having a positive impact on Waterloo Region. And that just puts us in a different place. So it takes work, and that's probably why not everyone is doing it. We need a lot of data, a lot of information. We need help. Jennifer and I knew we couldn't do this ourselves. We need Sustainable Waterloo Region, and we need our members and our partners. I don't run any arenas. I need the cities and the universities and the college all to be engaged and supportive of it. So really it's a community effort, and we're playing a part, but we certainly need a lot of help to make it happen.
Kelly Fields, Fields Trips tour operator. As I said earlier, so distracting this morning, Kelly, when I was on fieldstrips.ca. I really do genuinely love the look of these tours and travel experiences you offer. How do you create them with sustainability in mind?
Oh, that is a good question. 2.5 years ago, it wasn't a thought in our head. And then one very enthusiastic destination management organization said that they could offer a tour from our area and very low impact in their region as far as emissions went. And I was like, maybe we could look at doing that. And down the rabbit hole I ran and found that we could do it in Quebec. Why can't we do it here? So with that, I took that as a benchmark and started to work backwards and see that, first off, traveling by motor coach is one of the most efficient ways to move people. And then we just had to look at all of the different components that went into the tour, the hotels, the attractions, the restaurants, and look at each component and what we could do better with it. And a lot of the vendors were actually doing some sort of sustainable initiatives, but they weren't broadcasting it. They weren't sharing their wins. So with that, we made a strategic plan to get to the nitty gritty of it and really see who we could partner with, who was in the right mindset. So looking at different areas and looking at our own Waterloo Region, we wanted to work with those members that already have a game plan and know that by bringing in tourists to our region, we're doing the right thing. So we took the pledge and we became the first tour operator to be Sustainable Tourism certified in Canada. And we did that last year, and that dovetailed nicely into Explore Waterloo Region and the collaboration with Sustainable Waterloo Region for having a carbon offset tool that we could use. So their calculations are right in line with what we know. And what this all boils down to is when we're bringing groups into the region, we can responsibly offset their tours. So we do what we can for reductions, but where we can't, that's where we look at the carbon offset. So everybody can feel better about the trip that they had to the region.
Are travelers looking more and more to these sustainable tours, Kelly?
Yes and no. When we put it out there and we offer it, they are keen to be knowing that they're doing something good, but and I can't say that any other tour operator in Ontario is doing the same thing, but we embed it into the tour program. So they come away with the knowledge that they've participated in this, they wouldn't have signed up for it necessarily by itself, but knowing that they've done better, they then go on and look for it in other tours. So we bring them in, we give it to them, and then they appreciate it afterwards.
Tova, just as we wrap up here, I feel as though this is the magic that happens when it starts with a green hug between you and Jennifer Eddings from Explore Waterloo Region. And look at Guy Exley with Impact Events, Kelly Fields with Fields Trips. I mean, here we are, the sports hosting that we're doing through Alistair's department at Explore Waterloo Region. This is how it all begins.
I can't tell you how much I love that term, green hug. I think I need to get a t-shirt made. And I just wanted to highlight that it's not just these organizations. We also have Conestoga College, Delta Hotels, Doubletree and Home to Go, Homewood Suites, of course, Field Trips and Impact Events, City of Kitchener, Langdon Hall, Oktoberfest is participating, the University of Waterloo, the Welper Hotel, City of Waterloo, and of course, Wilmot and Woolwich Township. And then our existing members who are already participating, Little Mushroom Catering and Change Lifestyle and Apparel in St. Jacobs. This is a huge movement, and we encourage anybody in this sector who also works with Explore Waterloo Region to reach out and be part of this.
I will encourage people to do the same thing. Touch base with Sustainable Waterloo Region, see how you can get involved. Just like Explore Waterloo Region has Impact Events, Fields Trips, and by the way, Cyber Slack today, okay? Fieldstrips.ca. You will not be disappointed. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to run. I'm so short on time, but this was a great conversation. Thank you all very much. Jennifer Eddings, Guy Exley, Alistair Scorgie, and Kelly Fields, and Tova Davidson for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Great
Mike.
day.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our update in the 570 News Center, and it being Wednesday morning, well, that means our good friend Ian Hunter, a.k.a. the Blue Jay Hunter, joins us to talk some Blue Jays baseball next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The Whiz Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey, and the Duke.
Oh, let's talk some baseball with our good friend Ian Hunter. He is the Blue Jays Hunter, and he joins us Wednesday mornings, 11 o'clock, to talk some Blue Jays baseball. Blue Jay Hunter, good morning.
Good morning.
Is there anything else going on in Toronto sports today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
A very small hockey match.
Answer truthfully for me, Ian. Are the Blue Jays organizationally quite content with the current status of Toronto sports? In other words, there will be fewer eyes on Rogers Centre tonight than will be on the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, I think they're fine with that. There's probably anyone in attendance at the Jays game. I would not be shocked if you see people on their phones watching the Leafs game. I know when I was at the Metallica concert in Toronto a few weeks ago, my one buddy, he pulled out his phone and was watching the game, the Leafs game at the Metallica concert, which was kind of perplexing. I'm like, dude, we paid $300 for these tickets. Shouldn't you be paying attention to Metallica? But alas, old habits die hard with these sports teams.
I will not tell a lie. I had the great privilege of being a part of the Waterloo Region Entrepreneur Hall of Fame gala last night. The Flanagan family inducted, deservingly so. It was a great night. But when I was looking at my schedule for the week on Sunday while watching the Leafs game, I thought, oh no, 2 nights from now will be Tuesday. I'm booked. I'm going to miss the game. But the Leafs, they rescheduled for me, you see. So,
yeah. Isn't that weird? Because they've got now, what was it, 2 or 3 game gap or day gap in between the games. So it's odd, but that's good for you, I guess. So no schedule of conflict anymore.
No, exactly. I will be back and forth between both games tonight. I promise you that. And for our Blue Jays, of course, Ian, you come off a sweep of the Mariners, which doesn't happen all that often, if ever. Well, it just doesn't happen all that often. And then, of course, you run into Tampa Bay, which seems to me to be our arch nemesis.
They are. For the longest time, I always thought, it's the Yankees, it's the Red Sox. But to me, the Rays are like the pesky little brother of the Blue Jays who just get on your last nerve and somehow find a way to win. They really are good at developing pitching. That's kind of been their hallmark these last, I'd say 10, 15 years. And yeah, last night's game, if you were a baseball fan, you probably enjoyed it if you had no dog in the game because there was such back and forth. Looked like that game was over early just because the Blue Jays were so far behind, and then staged to come back, almost had that game in hand, and then Jeff Hoffman blows it in the ninth, and then just for a little more dramatic punctuation in the bottom of the ninth, the Jays score a few more runs and just narrowly come up short. I kind of saw that game as house money, as I was like, if they come back, they have no business winning this game anyway. So I think from a Jays fan perspective, I wasn't all that upset. Jeff Hoffman only had a 1-run lead anyway. The fact that he ballooned up to 5, that wasn't ideal. But I still think overall, if we go back to last week where I think they had blown 4 straight games, the bullpen did, and then they rattled off 4 straight, sweeping the Mariners, one of the hottest teams in baseball. I still think, they're a game under 500. There's a lot of positives to be taken out of the Jays from the last week or so.
How concerned are we, if at all, about Jeff Hoffman in the closer's role?
I'm not too concerned. He wasn't going to have a 1 point whatever ERA for the entire season. These guys are, they're not invulnerable to getting blown up. It just so happens that Jeff Hoffman has had his 2 worst outings of the season, I think 5 games apart now. So he had a few good shutdown games against the Mariners over the weekend, but I just think that's kind of what happens. Like when new pitchers come over to a league, maybe guys haven't seen tape on them yet, and they have the advantage, and then the batters make the adjustment. So now the onus is on Jeff Hoffman to, maybe adjust his pitch mix or what have you. I don't know if it's fatigue necessarily because his workload isn't tremendous, but yeah, like last night, even the Tampa Bay Rays closer, Pete Fairbanks, he got lit up. It was not across baseball. It was not a good night. If you were a late inning reliever, there was 5 walk-off games last night. So yeah, I'm not, if I had to put my level of concern on a 1 to 10 of Jeff Hoffman, I'd say it's like a 2, maybe fairly low. It's still early in the season. If we're having this conversation in July, August, I think that's problematic. But it's Jeff Hoffman is not the only closer who's been struggling this season in baseball.
It's not July or August, and we find the Blue Jays this week, Ian, in pretty much the same spot they were a week ago, and we had this conversation every Wednesday morning at 11. They're 3.5 games out. They're middle of the pack in the American League East. They're just a shade below 500, but nobody's running away with anything here. Santander has his 2nd home run of the season. The offense appears to be waking up. I suppose if you want to be glass half full, you could argue maybe the division's there for the taking right now to assert yourself within it, but nobody's falling off the radar here. They're hanging around.
Yeah, that's what that was like the silver lining that you provided me last week was, hey, they haven't performed great as of late, but neither has anybody else in the American League. The Yankees are not running away with the division. Not that I kind of take the standings with a grain of salt at the quarter pole here, but they're a game under 500. They're only 3.5 back. They're 1.5 games out of a playoff spot. Funny enough, if you took that record and took it over to the National League, the Jays would be 5 games back of a playoff spot. So that just goes to show me how much weaker the American League is this year than the National League. So you can kind of afford to get away with things. Like you said, Santander didn't even play in that Mariners series. Ideally, one of your most lethal hitters. So, yeah, the fact that they've just kind of turned this around by scoring a ton of runs, I think that's super positive. They've scored so many runs in the last 5 games. It's been really good to see. It sucks to lose the game the way they did last night, but I would say the offense did everything they possibly could to win that game.
Ian Hunter is the Blue Jay Hunter. He joins us Wednesday mornings at 11 to talk some Blue Jays baseball. You, as always, are welcome to be a part of the conversation as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock, Ian Hunter, the Blue Jay Hunter, joins us in studio to talk some Blue Jays baseball. You're welcome to be a part of the conversation at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Ian, I mentioned before the break that Santander has hit his second home run of the season between our weekly conversations from last week to this. And we know that he was brought in there for some protection for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We've got Bo Bichette in this lineup. We've got George Springer in this lineup. But did anybody have Dalton Varsho as a power hitter on their bingo card this year?
No, I didn't. I mean, the signs were sort of there in spring training. He was coming back from shoulder surgery, but the games that he got in spring training, I believe he had 4 or 5 home runs in spring training, which was... You know, he's been a 20-plus homer guy in the past, but I don't think anyone ever thought that he had that kind of pop in his bat. So he now has 5 homers in his first 10 games, still playing elite-level defense, and just giving some pop to the middle of the order. Like, he is kind of picking up the slack right now where Anthony Santander is not providing extra base power. So... and he almost single-handedly won that game for the Jays last night. Like if his 3-run home run stands up, he's being lauded as a hero right now. So it's been a really nice story, and he's always going to provide Gold Glove caliber defense. I kind of thought when he came over to Toronto, he's coming to a hitter's park. Maybe he's got 30-plus homers in that bat. Maybe we see that this year. I think the signs are kind of adding up that maybe he is this kind of power bat that the Blue Jays were always hoping he would be.
We watched Vladdy last year heat up in a big way through June, especially July, August, after a pretty rough start. Are we seeing something similar this year, or is it the weight of the $500 million contract holding him back?
Yeah, I don't know. You would think once the ink dries on a $500 million contract, you would be super motivated or comfortable. Like there wouldn't be that cloud hanging over you of whether you're going to get this deal done. But if anything, it seems like he's kind of taken a step back once that contract is signed. I'd have to go into his numbers, but yeah, he's been a traditionally, I believe, slow hitter. He really didn't turn it on until end of June last year, and then he just hit everything from the rest of the season on. So, yeah, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt here. You would like to see more power from him, but you look up and down the lineup, like there's been a real lack of power from Bo Bichette as well and Anthony Santander. So I think once we get to June, maybe we can kind of start to look at some trends here and there and see if maybe this is indicative of a bigger problem. But yeah, I'm still willing to give Vladdy a little bit of rope here.
I kind of joked at the beginning that, with a team that's just sort of middling along, it's fine. You can middle along if you stay in the thick of things, which the Blue Jays are. But they probably don't hate the fact that the Leafs are in the midst of a pretty fun playoff run, and they're going to have all the attention in Toronto tonight. But at this point, Ian, when it's been so long, really, since we've tasted any playoff success, you got the big contract now for Vladdy, but is there any danger of the Blue Jays kind of falling out of relevance in Toronto when you've got, TFC is going to be back for another season, the Raptors are there, the Leafs are playing well, et cetera? Is the fan base, the core group still there for this Blue Jays baseball club?
Yeah, I think so. I think there could have been a real turning point here if there was not a contract signed to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If we got to the end of this year and let's just hypothetically say the Jays miss out on the playoffs, Bo Bichette walks as a free agent, Vladdy walks as a free agent, I think that would have soured a lot of people. And to me, it wouldn't be indicative of, okay, a rebuild is on the doorstep here. And those are never fun. It doesn't matter what sport it is. I don't care. Great, you picked first overall. Yeah, you had the worst team in the league last year. Congratulations. But yeah, I think the fact that they've sunk $500 million into Vlad, they spent a lot, they were very active this offseason. I think that's just indicative that this team wants to win and they want to continue to contend. But yeah, I think there's, I don't want to say the people are pessimistic, but you get to the playoffs, okay, that's great, but they still have not won a playoff game with this regime. They haven't won a playoff series, so I think they've got a lot to prove over these next, 2 to 3 years. I think are going to be really, really critical for this organization.
Speaking of Bo Bichette, is he going to walk at the end of the season? Come on, get out your crystal ball. I'm leaning yes.
Yeah. I'm leaning yes. I just feel like there's been so many junctures where the Blue Jays were rumored to be interested in a shortstop when they had Bo Bichette there. And I always thought, well, why are you trying to get another franchise shortstop? Maybe and this is just me. This is my speculation alone, that they always felt like Bo was going to walk as a free agent anyway. And he was going to bet on himself. That's kind of my feel for the situation. So it would not shock me if he walks as a free agent. They have an internal option. Andres Jimenez has played shortstop before, so he could slide over to short. Ideally, you'd like a guy with a little more power, but if you need to fill that position and Jimenez provides Gold Glove defense there, that would be an option. So we'll see what happens. There's always the possibility they could trade him at the trade deadline and maybe sort of buy and sell at the same time if they're in contention, but it's going to depend on what plays out over these next few months here.
Let's see if the Blue Jays can get the better of their little brothers from Tampa tonight.
Let's hope so. I mean, the thing is, it's on home court or home field. They were always traditionally could never win a series in Tropicana Field. Yeah. So at least now they're at home in Toronto. They've got the home field advantage, so we'll see what happens.
We got the ball game and the puck game tonight in Toronto, and we have Blue Jay Hunter with us every Wednesday morning at 11. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Allow me, if I may, to correct the mayor. I love doing that. The best part of my job is playing for you some audio from one of our mayors and then saying, the mayor was wrong. The mayor was so wrong. Okay, the mayor wasn't terribly wrong. In fact, I want you to do, to some degree, what Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic encouraged you to do. If you missed the council meeting on Monday when Kitchener Council was considering spending $2 million to create a restaurant and event space at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. Council did wisely vote to do that, and Mayor Verbanovic reminded you of this.
The amazing giving back that the Rangers organization does to the community, to our minor hockey teams, and so many other things that the Rangers are involved with, including supporting. I might as well give it a plug. Farwell for Hire during the month of May. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, the next early bird draw is actually for a game suite at the Rangers.
There you go. The next early bird draw, but not quite, Mr. Mayor, a game suite. Close enough, though. You can be in my suite, my broadcast suite, along with Paul Fixter for a game. It is a Kitchener Rangers early bird prize to be drawn at 11 o'clock on Friday morning. The VIP Rangers experience. You'll get a tour of the dressing room. You'll get a one-on-one with a Rangers player. You're going to get yourself your very own signed Kitchener Rangers jersey and then your seat in the broadcast suite for the game. But what you got to do, that's right in the David Schooley broadcast booth. What you got to do, though, to get all of that is get yourself a Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle ticket, okay? Go to cf5050.ca. cf5050.ca. Current jackpot, more than $64,000. Your take home, more than $32,000. That means you get $32,000 plus cystic fibrosis. Research gets $32,000 plus. Everybody's happy, but I want that jackpot to go higher. I think we can make it to a $70,000 jackpot by Friday morning at 11 when we award that Kitchener Rangers VIP experience as an early bird prize. Get your CF 50/50 tickets at cf5050.ca before 11 on Friday morning. And thank you, Mr. Mayor Verbanovic, for the plug during the council meeting the other night. An update from the 570 News Center, and then Rob Deutschman is here with political R&D on the Mike Farwell Show. We're talking Phase 2 LRT. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You sound like Ozzy Osbourne.
Aye.
Oh, Rob Deutschman on Wednesday mornings at 11:30 joins us for political R&D. R for Rob, D for Deutschman. And are we riding the crazy train today, Mr. Deutschman?
Look, yeah, sure we are, but we are riding. It's not going off the rails.
Are you sure?
I'm positive as anything.
Really?
As positive as buying a Farwell for Hire jackpot ticket.
The jackpot went up, by the way, since we mentioned it. Now over $64,000. Let's go.
Quick, just before we get into that, I just want to touch base. I mean, I heard your quick chat with the gentleman who touches on Ottawa stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about the concentration of power around the PMO's office and stuff like that. And it got me thinking, for the listeners out there, you really have to focus on municipal politics. If you want to make change happen in your community and you really want to see change happening, then focus on what's going on. The elections municipally are more important than what's happening federally because of the impact on everybody's lives. I mean, sure, we love the sexy discussions about what happens at Ottawa or leadership or that sort of thing, but there's no concentration of power per se, although at a future show we'll talk about what I think are the 12 most important positions within the region of Waterloo in terms of controlling the agenda overall.
All 8 CAOs and then what?
No, it's
Okay.
not that. They're
All
not
right.
even in. They're not even in there.
Okay.
But
there are 8 of them and there shouldn't be.
That's another discussion. But municipal policy is so important. And you see so much going on, right? I mean, look at all the stuff about arenas that's happening. Cambridge is talking about arenas. Kitchener's expanding. They just had their report about splash pads and amenities and creating more amenities for our community as we're growing. These are all the decisions that are made at the municipal level. And then we look to the feds and the province for funding. AIR, for example, is going through a twin pad situation, got some funding, not all the funding they needed. And so now we're going through a whole bunch of machinations and permutations to try to figure out how we can make it happen as our community is growing and trying to preserve whatever space we have there as well. So there's a lot happening. And, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and try to share some of my knowledge with the listeners during this quote half hour. I know it's a little bit less than that, but to talk about stuff. And so I heard you chatting about LRT last week, and the extension. And so I sent you an email. I said, look, we got to talk about this, okay?
Well, and the reason I'm talking about it, Rob, is because I'm hearing some different language today. When Cambridge Council asked about the appetite from upper levels of government for funding a system,
right,
the response was, and this might have been just a misspeak on the part of the regional staff member, and I'm sorry I couldn't identify who it was, but somebody in transportation or with GRT said that if the upper levels of government do not have the appetite, we will consider the tri-level partnership like we did for Phase 1. I've never heard that before, Rob. So that signals to me...
That's a reality, though.
Okay, but if it is, and that's the first time anybody has publicly said so, where in HE double hockey sticks is this region coming up with $1.5 billion? Ain't going to happen, pal.
So let's just pause and take a step back for a sec, okay? So, LRT, the ION, was a line drawn by Jerry Thompson back in the early 70s, right? He looked at the region, he drew a straight line right down from north to south and said, this is what we're going to need if we're going to grow up instead of growing out and protect our countryside. And eventually, we didn't get it built until the end of spring of 2018. So, that's 35 years later, right? So, and in that situation, remember how the funding came about, right? First of all, you had to build the business plan. You had to do the environmental studies. It took time. And on my podcast, I did an interview with Brian Stortz, who was a communications guy and also the political guy in this area. And he pointed out how we first got the province to commit some money. Okay, because no one was committing 100% at that particular time. After we got ours done, then, Hamilton will fund it. Ottawa, I think, was maybe funded too, but these other areas were funded fully. Okay, so the province put in their share, and don't forget, this is shortly after 2008, 2009, with all the capital projects, which were 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Okay, the province, the feds, and municipalities. So the feds then, after we got the province to announce, the feds were coming up on an election, and so using some pressure, we're able to get them to cough up money. So then we entered into our 2010 municipal election with the commitments from the feds and the province, recognizing that money was not enough to get it done. First of all, to get an LRT done from Waterloo to Cambridge. And so we entered that 2010 election, and there was a lot of discussion about that. And I remember that's the first time I got elected, and so it's very vivid in my memory, inauguration night at the Region, and Ken Sealing giving a speech saying basically, despite all the debate that went on during the campaign, said, look, we've got $560 million or $600 million or whatever it is, 550. We cannot turn it down. We have to push ahead and go ahead. And so what did the Region do? The Region came up with a plan to fund their share, which was a big hit back then. And it was basically property tax increases of approximately 1.5% over a 9-year period. So you keep adding on to it.
I know, because
right?
I'm paying for it still.
No, you're paying for it, but you're not moving out of the community, I see, because of property taxes. So
no,
let's just be straight,
I like this show and these conversations so much, I will never leave.
Exactly. So that's how eventually it got funded. Now, what was interesting was back then was the debate about area rating. Okay. So one of the ways I think to get the townships on board was it was pointed out to them, look, we're not going to add to your property taxes, the regional portion of your property taxes, to pay for this.
Yeah, Cambridge would have loved the same deal.
And I'm going to get to that.
Okay, good.
Even though the chair at the time could probably make an argument to say, well, look, we're protecting your countryside line. Maybe you should contribute something to it because you're getting the benefit of us building up and not building out. Cambridge at the time, and I was at council, and I sat between Doug Craig and Sean Strickland, so I had like the best education, on the street education one could get in politics from two guys that really knew their stuff. And Doug was mayor then, and it was interesting because Doug actually had prepared commissioned a report that said at the time that Cambridge couldn't justify an ion extension because of usage at that time back then, and that was one of the reports that he had generated. So, but he said, well, why can we talk about area rating? Okay, why have Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge pay for it? Can we do it through area rating? And that caused a huge rift. I missed the council meeting. I watched it online. It was a council meeting where the chair and the finance chair basically showed Cambridge all of the things that the region was doing for them and why they were benefiting from this relationship from a financial perspective. And I used to kid Doug about it because I said, you kind of had the same thing with Galt, Preston, and Hespeler, because Hespeler and Preston would always say, hey, Galt's getting more than us, and Doug would always show them on a per capita basis. It was equitable. But can you imagine if we area rated that? And so Kitchener and Waterloo would be paying about $250 million for their portion. Cambridge would be paying potentially, $1 billion if you're going on a 1/3, 1.5 billion for their portion?
But, okay, so explain to me then how, because I mentioned earlier how the language has changed. Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett brought to her council last week the statement that
the rapid bus.
For the first time ever, there's an option 5. Okay, and you know what? So let's pick it up on that if you don't mind, okay? Yeah. So, rapid bus is on the table. All of a sudden, all 3 levels of government might be involved in funding.
And that's not bad. You just don't have enough time on this show so we can fully explain everything.
It's a 17% tax hit, Mr. Deutschman.
No, you don't know what it is for sure. We have to go with the flow.
Math.
You got to go with the flow, Mike.
Okay.
You got to go with the flow.
I know what flows downstream. We're going to continue political R&D with Rob Deutschman on the Mike Farwell Show.
Not from me.
570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett tells Cambridge Council a week ago that there is a 5th option on the table for extending transit into Cambridge. It's now bus rapid transit, might not be trains. And if it is a train going to Cambridge, for the first time ever, I have heard regional staff in a public meeting say a tri-level partnership would be considered, which means the municipality pays 1/3, the province pays 1/3, the feds pay 1/3 of a $4.5 billion light rail transit system into Cambridge. So, Rob Deutschman, political R&D, how does one creatively finance a $1.5 billion capital project?
So first off, let's just go back to you're commenting on what Mayor Leggett had mentioned about that. So, and I just want to say, when I was at Regional Council, the desire for the extension is strong, very strong amongst all the members. Okay, that is the desired outcome. Number one, laser focused on that issue. However, if you're going to make your presentations, you've got to make the business case. And anyone knows, if you've been through that, you're making the business case. Option one is always the do nothing, and then this, that, and the other thing. So this is what the staff at the region have to do. They have to show the business case so that when they're presenting to the upper tiers are looking at saying, okay, have you considered all the various options? All right. And bus rapid transit is something that would have to be considered if the project didn't go through. So, for example, let's say the province and the feds decided they weren't going to fund any more transit, which is highly unlikely. And the trend is generally we need more transit. Look at European communities. Look at other places in the world. Look at Asia. I mean, transit is key, and we are woefully behind in our development of transit here, even though the train brought us together as a country. We've kind of stopped after that. So that is key for us. Okay, so that is going forward. Now, is it $4.5 billion? For sure, we don't know. There's a lot of, when you read the reports, okay, and I go on back, there's massive contingencies that are built into that number. And so when we could only get our $850 million, we modified what we could do with the money that we had, so that we were able to build something from the north of Waterloo down to the south of Kitchener. And don't forget, when you talk about the property tax increase and the method that we used before, and I think anyone looking at the Kitchener Ion would have to say that it's been a massive success on many levels. Now, I know you got your issue about ice buildup on the line in the winter, but that aside, okay, it has been a tremendously successful project, built pretty well on time, almost on budget. I don't know if there's a minor variation. Now we're finally getting into the hub, the downtown hub, and the usage of it has increased considerably. Okay, now there's probably be a bit of a shortfall now because of the international student situation in our community. But aside from all of that, the development in the community has been tremendous, because iron in the ground for light rail transit. Okay, it's not light rapid transit, it's light rail transit. Iron in the ground tells developers this is fixed for decades to come. And so you can commit your dollars today to build these massive residential complexes, commercial complexes that we see that would never have been built but for the Ion being there. Kitchener-Waterloo see that. And everyone that I talk to in Cambridge, business people, the Chamber, Greg DeRocher, the great Greg DeRocher, will tell you that Hespeler Road, as successful as it has been, is slated for billions of dollars. Now, Greg uses it, like he says, 8 to 10 billion. So you're telling me about a $4.5 billion project, which is going to be less, okay, and might be funded fully because the governments have fully funded, for example, Hamilton. So the question then is, look, in terms of population base, we're as large as.
But Hamilton was $1 billion, just for the record. The longer this takes, the more it costs.
All things cost more. And all transit costs more.
You think less than $4.5 billion, Rob?
Yeah. Like looking at that $4.5 billion has a lot of contingencies built into it, and it could be done for less. We can modify what we do and how we do it, but it's going to go ahead. So those that are concerned about it,
I'm very concerned.
Well, you're concerned about cost and other things, and the region did a great job the first time around. So if you're going to go by past history, you should be optimistic about our ability to do what we need to do, because we've shown that we've been able to successfully do this before.
It's 5 times the cost now. 5 times.
Everything is more. And at the time that was built, it was probably 5 times the cost it was 15 years before that. So, Mike, everything goes up, okay? We do what we can do. If we can't do it, then I guess the other alternative is the bus rapid transit, right? So,
could you imagine, though, if Cambridge only gets bus rapid transit after all of this?
Look,
because Hespeler Road's not going to develop with bus rapid transit.
Well, we don't know for sure what exactly that entails, okay? But if we can get people moving around our community faster, so somebody from Cambridge can get up to the university faster or something else like that, anything we can do to speed things up is a benefit to the community, for sure. But it's an option that's on the table because of, I guess, maybe the potential that what didn't get funded, you have to be aware of all the contingencies and all the issues that could occur. And that's why I would say it's there. And I think it's the smart thing to do. You have to. I'm a businessman. I'm looking at my business. And I know it's a law practice, but I have to look at all the different issues, different areas of law, different people that we bring in, how we market ourselves, what the future is going to be. So you're always looking at those things. And if you weren't looking at those things, you'd be a poor businessman if you weren't considering the future. And so they're looking at all the various options that are available. And it's smart to include that as an option.
I'm a little worried in the bigger picture to something you just said, Rob, because as a business person...
I don't want to worry you.
Not just you, pal. Not just you.
All right.
But as a business person, you're considering all of these things in the future and how, Deutschman de Koning law fits into all of that, et cetera. I'm a little worried that we're not thinking big enough or far enough into the future municipally today, because we need to be, as the phrase is out there, 1 million ready in 25 years.
Right. Well, look at transit planning.
This would be one part of it.
Is always considering 1 million ready.
Sure.
You raise a good point, right? As a two-tiered community with the region and the area municipalities having their roles and responsibilities. And obviously, growth in every municipality is an issue, and the growth of overall of the region is an issue. It is difficult to try and plan for the future on a consistent basis across the whole of the region. Right? The cities are doing what they can, and I think they're doing a good job because they're always very proactive in terms of looking at things to do and how to better serve their community. But if you're talking about how best to do that, that can be a topic for another day. I think we as a community probably do need to have a sort of a get-together, a symposium, an emporium, a collection of people getting together, public discussions on where do we want to be and what do we want to do. You walk around some of our downtowns, some are uptowns, downtowns, the core of our cities, and some cities have 3 cores. And we're seeing different levels of development. We're seeing obviously great things that are happening in the neighborhood. Are we all scrambling and just trying to patch, and we used this phrase last time, in the dam? It feels like we're always running to catch up to do something. But every municipality does something really great. They do some things not as great. And maybe if there was more collaboration in terms of sharing those things, which I know they do to a large part in terms of conversations, we might get us to a better place. But you're right. When are we going to get to that million? How are we serving that million? And earlier we started by talking about all the arenas and amenities, and that's really what communities need. So as a counselor, you're sitting there going, okay, I'm here for 4 years. I might be here for another 4, but during the 4 that I'm here, I want to make sure I'm passing on something to the baton to the next council, right? Because that baton is our community, and I don't want to drop it and break it, but it's never finished. And you just pass it on to the next group to carry on with what you need to do. So, people like yourself raising the issue about what can we do as a community, like conference centers and other things collectively, we'll have to see. Sometimes in our collective efforts, like Center in the Square, there hasn't been a lot of collective buy-in, but sometimes it's left to, well, that's located in your city, so you take care of it.
It's a very interesting community to try to get this kind of work done.
Yeah, but lots of maneuvering.
I love the point you made at the beginning, Rob. We really need to pay attention to municipal politics, who we are electing municipally, and I love that we get these weekly conversations to shine a light on it. Thank you.
And LRT is going to Cambridge.
All right.
Bank on it.
I have my doubts, but I won't bank on it, but I'll take your word, and we'll see how this turns out. Rob Deutschman, Political R&D, every Wednesday morning, 11:30 on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Look, let me be clear about this, okay? I want Cambridge to get light rail transit. I really do. Holy Hannah, when I hear the language lately and I look at the numbers lately, I have my doubts. But Rob Deutschman, who's here every Wednesday morning at 11:30 for Political R&D, he's very confident Cambridge will get its light rail trains. We shall see as we move forward with a big, important issue in our community, of which there are so many. I'm kind of fired up about this today. I will not tell a lie. After being at the Waterloo Region Entrepreneur Hall of Fame Gala last night, and the Flanagan family inducted for their tremendous work over 4 decades now with Flanagan Food Service. The families and the people that took the risks to do the things that have built us to where we are today. I worry a little bit that we're lacking in some of that willingness to take risks and some of that vision that we need to be ready for the 1 million people we will be by way of population in about a generation, 25 years from now. I feel like going off in a million different directions on that. But earlier today, we also had a conversation on the show about housing and what it is that's holding us back from getting more houses built more quickly. We couldn't get to all the calls then, so maybe that's what you want to get into in our Talkback Hour next. How do we get more houses built more quickly? Whatever direction we go in during the next hour is up to you. Talkback begins after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Our phone lines are already lighting up. You've got stuff on your mind, which is great because this hour belongs to you. Whatever it is that you need to get off your chest and onto the air, please do so because you know they're listening. And by they, I mean the people that make the decisions in this community. They're tuning in to hear what you think about things, what's on your mind, what's important to you. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. We'll go right to the phones and see where we start today. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, but LRT just triggers me. Wow. I mean, Rob Deutschman seems like a nice enough chap and all, but I think he's unduly optimistic. I mean, if they are really serious about getting it down to Cambridge, that would have been the very first thing they figured out because it's the hardest part. How do you get it from Kitchener down to Preston? That's the hardest part. They should have done it first. And every day they put it off, the price goes up incrementally as this area gets filled in with more buildings. But no, they needed their nice little KW bit of track so they could show off to the press. I don't think it'll happen. I think they're just giving us smoke and mirrors, and the best we're ever going to see is bus rapid transit, quite frankly. I mean, it may happen, but I'll be dead before that happens of old age.
All right, Sean, I appreciate the call. Listen, I understand the cynicism and or skepticism on this. I do, because $4.5 billion is one big nut, isn't it? And Sean's also right. In fact, remember that regional councillor for Cambridge, Pam Wolf, talked about phasing phase 2, if you will, because the most expensive part is getting it from South Kitchener through Preston to the kind of area of Eagle and Hespeler Road, for example. And then the stretch down Hespeler Road gets less expensive because, of course, getting from South Kitchener into the Preston part of Cambridge requires getting over the river and going down Sean's Hell and all of these different things. It's a very expensive part of phase 2. Remember, and Rob Deutschman talked about this in the last half hour, yes, you can call it something to show off to the press, phase 1 from Waterloo to Kitchener and that central transit corridor, but more than $3 billion in development along that corridor so far. And Hespeler Road alone, the development on Hespeler Road will dwarf what's already happened in Kitchener and Waterloo. That's if we can get the tracks there, which would be one part of phase 2, if you will, that Councillor Wolf suggested we even consider. Could we do the less expensive part first or something along those lines? Anyway, it's a tall order for sure. Rob Deutschman more optimistic than either Sean or I on this. Nathaniel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I would like to talk about that, and I have two problems with that.
Okay.
One is that Hespeler Road is super busy like during rush hour and whatnot as it is. If we have one lane gone because there are tracks there, well, now it'll become impossible. And then the second thing is that why should Cambridge pay for another part of iron when we paid for the first phase and we didn't get anything?
Yeah, listen, I get that part, Nathaniel. I appreciate the call. I like the point Rob Deutschman made on that in the last half hour. If I get it, you paid for phase one, you're not getting phase one. But if you don't get help or somebody doesn't pay for phase two regionally, then it's way too much for Cambridge to fund all by itself, because Cambridge will get the tracks then, right? That's the whole idea of phase two. And I hear you on Hespeler Road. It is one of my... I love our businesses out there. I know you're working hard, but it's one of my least favorite roads to drive. Fairway Road's another one, because congestion. Light rail should mitigate some of that. And listen, if you think that'll have an impact, have you tried Herb Street in Waterloo? Sometimes you can be lucky enough to get stopped at the tracks at Herb and Caroline twice for the train to go one way and then the other train to go the other way. Same traffic signal, sit there through both of them because the trains are that close to one another, going either north or south. So it's impacting already traffic on busy streets in Kitchener and Waterloo as well. But I hear you, Nathaniel, and thanks for raising that. Andre, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. There was a segment earlier about affordable housing, and before I get to that, I'd like to add on that. Don't you have Tracy Falco still on your show?
I haven't had Tracy on in a while, but she does Ask the Experts segments on the weekend for sure.
So my point to that is because of people like me, so what I'm trying to say is some expert that can explain to me that, because they say that in Kitchener you have to make $100,000 to be in that.
No, it's Andre. It's about $190,000 household income to afford a home in the region today.
So you're saying me and my wife have to make $190,000?
Yes.
Sorry, Mike, but okay. So that even growing here, like my wife says, so that's pushing us out because that is
absolutely it is. That's the whole point. That's why we keep having these conversations, okay. Andre.
And that's right. So that's why we're doing affordable housing, 30% of your salary, right?
Well, that's what Canada Mortgage and Housing. That's how Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation calculates affordability. The cost for you to be sheltered and pay those utilities, et cetera, should be no more than 30% of your income.
Okay. So let's say we make $100,000, 30% of that, right?
Is $30,000, yes, give or take.
A year. So let's say right now I'm paying $2,500 for renting. How much is that a year?
$30,000.
Okay. Now I'm renting a bungalow 3-bedroom backyard for $2,500.
Then you're doing very well. So I hope, I don't know, I mean, I think that sounds like a pretty good deal. 3-bedroom bungalow with a backyard for $2,500 a month. I don't know, I'm not out there in the market right now, but based on what I've heard of the market, you're doing pretty darn well. It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show. We continue, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I love the post from Daryl on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. You want to fund phase 2 of light rail to Cambridge? Easy. Photo radar. Especially in Wellington County, $4.5 million in about 3 months revenue generated there. Incredible stuff. Quickly also to an email from Chris to Mike at 570news.com. I haven't heard about your Farwell for Hire ale this year. Is someone still producing it? And is it selling at any restaurants at this point? Chris, thanks for the question. I should talk about it more. Sometimes I feel like I talk about my beer too much. Yes, Block 3 is brewing Face for Radio IPA. Get it from your friends at Block 3 in St. Jacobs. A portion of sales goes directly to cystic fibrosis research. Face for Radio IPA from Block 3, and you will also find it at some local charcoal group restaurants because they like us. They really like us, and we like them in return. Thanks for the question, Chris. Back to the phones on Talkback. Frank, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. I want to say that I do have a lot of respect for Rob Deutschman with respect to his knowledge and his commitment, but he's obviously a dyed-in-the-wool tax and spend liberal, and he's not anchored in reality. When you listen to Rob talk about the LRT, and you raise the issue of how much the cost has gone up, he says everything has gone up. It's like we're supposed to accept that. You know, he just doesn't, and most of the regional people, all the councillors, aren't anchored in reality. And, you know, we have 10% tax increases that we're supposed to absorb all the time, and now we want to layer on, you know, additional taxes for the future, and I understand the concept of investing in the future and all that kind of stuff. And you're a big fan of that. They're not always investments, Mike. The LRT can be. I want to know where all the, the dollars that are coming into the region and the cities with all the development that has been triggered by the LRT, and why they aren't going back into funding an extension of the LRT and also funding the basic things that we need and sticking to the knitting within town. Now, the rapid bus option was a very, very good option right from the beginning. But we needed this grand, glorious showcase item called the LRT, which I don't think is the only trigger for the investment. We've had the countryside line that has driven the build-up thing as much as the LRT has. It's just a consequence that they build it, you know, it's convenient to build it along the LRT and it'll all make sense, and I'll go along with all that kind of crap. But we cannot afford to continue with the same old assumptions. Rob Deutschman's approach is to work within the existing system. Oh, taxes got to go up, everything goes up. We're afraid to break the system, break down the traditional view of what government has to accept as realities, and get real.
All right, Frank, listen, I hear where you're coming from. I certainly understand that frustration. I feel it in many ways. I think it's a really good point about all of the development, the billions of dollars in development. Should that not have contributed back into the tax roll to offset these 10% increases that we're dealing with, plus what we would have to deal with to fund phase 2 of light rail? Really good points by Frank. And on the note of the countryside line and what happens beyond it, a reminder that we're anticipating an update today from the region of Waterloo around the Wilmot Land Assembly. Stay tuned to 570 News Radio, because we will bring you the information as it becomes available to us today. Tim, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm going to sound like a cranky old man today, Mike. My wife and I are walking in our neighborhood last night with our little dog, like we always do at 6:30 at night, and we have the classic showdown. 4 teenagers, actually, coming on their electric scooters, on their powered scooters, down the sidewalk, right at us, full speed. And this time, I'm not budging. I stand my ground. They drive right up to us, and the guy tells me to get out of the way. You know what I told him? I'm tired of this in our neighborhoods. I think, actually, they're not supposed to be on my sidewalk. Am I wrong about that?
You are not wrong, sir.
And we got a little dog. The other day, a guy almost hit my dog on the scooter. And obviously, enforcement's hard for this. I don't know if the message is not being told to these young people. Maybe they're just like we were when we were young, a little bit obstinate and don't want to listen. But someone's going to get hurt, and maybe potentially people are going to look at this issue. I think it's a big problem.
Tim, I really appreciate the call. I get it. We have so many of these little vehicles that are not powered by humans, right? Battery operated. I heard a guy on a bicycle, not a scooter, not a motorcycle, but you could hear the motor on the thing, and he was clicking along at faster than the speed posted 30. I can tell you that, on a bicycle, because we don't pedal these things anymore. We ride on them. And so the scooters, the e-bikes, you name it. I feel like that same cranky old man, Tim. Thanks for raising the issue. Alex, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
Yeah, as far as the LRT goes, have they released
the numbers of the current system? Like, what's the ridership? What percentage of capacity?
They have. I don't have them off the top of my head, but those numbers have been released.
And are they? Is the tax base paying for the maintenance of it, or is it self-sustained yet? Are we still?
No, we signed there's a 30-year operating maintenance thing with Keolis is the group that manages it. So.
No, what I'm saying, does it generate enough revenue to pay for its own maintenance?
Oh, hell no. But transit doesn't do that, period. Like the fare box does not generate. Transit's always subsidized.
Right. Well, okay, that's fine, but buses are a lot cheaper. So the point I'm getting at is how much is that per year already? Because the ridership is higher than it was. It's probably close to what you'll expect to get.
Sure.
And so what's that number?
So what's the number?
That number of my property taxes have to pay for that, and everyone else's does too. What's that number? It's not expected to drop, and now multiply that by the next one. And that's the debt that's going to occur every year for this thing that the property tax.
Sure, but Alex, in fairness, when we're talking about funding transit in a community, we also fund the road repairs for you and I to drive on, presuming you drive, right? So it's the same thing.
That's supposed to come out of the almost $1 a liter tax. Pay.
I think
that's what it's supposed to.
Okay.
So
if you want to believe that, I've got a great deal for you on some swampland in Florida.
I didn't say believe it.
Okay, well, so all I'm saying is it's very like I think you're pulling a little straw man there, right? Like I get it.
Not.
Okay,
no, I'm not.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
the roads are supposed to be paid for through the tax base of the gasoline tax. That's what's supposed to happen.
Okay,
we pay way more than that. We actually pay more in taxes in the gas than all the road maintenance combined by a ton. And so, okay. Let's look at the transit. How much does a transit cost? That's a very simple question for a taxpayer. What's the yearly debt that we have to pay out of the tax base?
Yeah,
because the homeowners have to pay it.
Of course, and there I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there is an annual budget for Grand River Transit. There's no question about it.
That's pretty important information if they're talking about expanding.
Okay, fair, and it's easily accessible. The numbers are there. I'll try to find it during this commercial break. But again, we pay for the maintenance and continued upkeep and upgrades of all kinds of things in the community. So if you're opposed to expanding transit, I can understand why you'd be concerned with that number. But I think in the bigger picture, the point is well taken. Not only do we fund it as a capital expense to build it, then we fund its ongoing maintenance and operation. Sure, but we do that for so many things. Community centers, roads, parks, you name it. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 12 o'clock Talkback, 570 News Radio, and Rogers TV. Just a real quick look here at some budget numbers, and it appears as though for 2025, Grand River Transit bus services at $91 million and a bit, light rail transit at $33 million and a bit. So put those two numbers together, got about $124 million under transportation services in the regional budget. There's probably more devil in those details, but give it $120 million plus, and we'll start there as a starting point for what we spend annually to keep the buses and trains running. Talkback continues. Kyle, you're next, and there's a line open for you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you want to be a part of Talkback, you are welcome to participate. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Back to the phones. Kyle, good afternoon.
Hello. I had to take you off a speaker. I was being conscientious of the break.
Thank you.
I don't have, third time caller, not second time caller, Kyle, or a list tool, Kyle. But I had my sister buy $50 worth of Farwell for hire tickets, just because it was easier that way, because I had cash and she had a bank account, or I have a bank account too. But anyways, what else was I gonna say? go Leafs go. No, I wasn't going to say anything about that, but yes, that's how I feel. And yeah, if you need somebody to do some random work that you could be paid for, like, you get the jobs and I'll do it for like a fifth of the price or
well, I do it for free, Kyle. How are you going to do it for less than that?
I don't know. Make money and then donate it back, or
That's kind of how the whole program works. I'm going out to do a whole bunch of mulching this afternoon after the show. You could do it for me, but the money has to go to the charity. You see, that's how this works.
Oh, I get that, and that's the goal, and that's all I was trying to get to. I just trying to figure out how does the economy work? I don't know. don't they just make a bunch of money and then give some back, and that's for that carbon rebate tax or that Carney rebate tax. I never got that. So, or the carbon Carney rebate tax. And yes, I've had a couple wobbly pops, but I'm very tired. And no, I'm more concerned with charity, and I'm disgusted by the amount of starving children in this country.
Okay, hang on a second. Let's just back that up for a second. It's 12:36 p.m. I know the old saying goes, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but you're into the wobbly pops already today, huh?
Well, I'm an alcoholic in a way.
Oh.
And, well, yeah. But, I mean, I'm just always sore from work, and nobody tells me anything, and I never know what to do. And, anyways, I'm sorry, and sorry for all the starving kids and the kids with cystic fibrosis or anyone with any disease. Sorry I piss away my life.
Okay, well, don't do that. Please, Kyle, don't piss away your life. I will say this with certainty. You're not pissing away your life if you're listening to this show. We cover issues that matter here. We have important conversations, I think. So good on you for engaging in that. But hopefully, if you're sincere in your struggle with alcohol, maybe you can seek some support in that regard, because I would not want to see you struggle and or suffer for sure. Paul, over to you on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh, a little disappointed. Apparently, if you're hungry and you want to eat crickets, you're going to have to find a different source. The cricket plant in London has gone into receivership.
Oh, no.
$41 million.
I remember having them on the show. Like, they were going to be a great source of protein for us or something.
I'm not sure if Farm Credit Canada has anything to actually do with the Canadian government. I was just looking it up. But they've been forced into receivership. $41 million blown away. So, how about them crickets? You have a good day.
Thank you, Paul. You too. I had not heard, but isn't that an interesting one? That the $41 million invested into the cricket factory, the cricket production facility, it kind of reminds me of, and this gets into a whole big conversation about, quote unquote, corporate welfare. But we have these initiatives that we decide as governments are good bets, if you will, which I don't like. I don't think it should be up to the government to pick the winners and the losers. Thank you very much. The market will determine that when it comes to business ideas and or propositions. And we talk about this in automotive. Obviously, it's been in the news this week because Honda is scaling back its plans in Alliston, Ontario, at least for the next couple of years. Instead of the investments that we're going to see new electric vehicle production beginning in 2028, it will now begin in 2030 at the earliest. Does it get pushed further out than that? I don't know, but we know that there were billions of provincial dollars committed to that project. At this point, the funds have not yet flowed, so it's not as though the province is out the money, but doesn't that just speak to the very heart of the issue that Paul raises here? Is it really up to the government to pick the winners and the losers, to make the bets? Because the province was willing to bet, I believe it's upwards of $5 billion on the EV opportunity in Alliston, and now Honda, the company behind said opportunity, is pumping the brakes on it. Again, good thing the money hasn't yet been invested, but this is where the concern comes in when the government decides to subsidize a for-profit enterprise. Crickets. I remember it was a big deal. The crickets were going to be a new source of protein. Whatever happened to that? How do you like those crickets? Paul asked. It's a very good point. And another $42 million that we will never see again. I sincerely hope that our new government and its new cabinet will mind the dollars, the nickels, the quarters, the dimes, the loonies, and take better care of the money that we pay in taxes. It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I've always said that this Talkback Hour is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get next. But I keep answering the phones anyway because I'm wild that way. George is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, George.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, thank you, sir. How are you?
Two very quick points. I like Robert Dutchman. I really do. I think he's a great guy. He's smart. He's well-spoken. But it's not going to happen. If it ever happens, Mike, you and I'll be staying in a senior's home, watching the news 30 years from now. That might be when it actually happens.
Phase 2 of LRT. You're not a believer, George.
No, if it ever happens, like you said, there was that one time in the 70s, someone had planned it. Yeah.
All right.
And the other thing, Mike, just one more thing.
Sure.
I feel good about the $500 million that Roger just spent with the Blue Jays for Vladdy. That's not going to end well. I don't see that as a good investment. That's it.
George, could I ask, would you think it would be a good investment to put $500 million into this show? Maybe $450 million of it for the host. What do you think?
You know what? I'm glad you asked that because when you had Ian on, why didn't they give him $350 million, split the rest between yourself, Ian, Rob Snow? Like, split it up a little bit. Don't give one guy $500 million.
All right, George. Always like to hear from you. I thought I'd try for something shameless that I can send to the powers that be in the upper echelons of this company. You see, they don't want the money invested in Vladdy, not all of it. Share it with Blue Jay Hunter and Rob Snow, who's coming up from 1 until 3 today. Or why not? I'll take just a little. I'll just take only my fair share, okay, of the remaining $150 million that you didn't pay to Vladdy. I think I could find a way. I'll find room in my budget for a little extra. Francis, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I know you remember the day after those cornfields were all plowed down. I called in how ticked off I was.
Oh, in Wilmot Township. Yes, sir.
Yes. So is that land still sitting there idle, or are they going to be able to plant for the next 5-6 years because nothing else is going to happen there?
Well, Francis, you're asking an excellent question. To the best of my knowledge, the land is still sitting there idle, and I also understand that we will be getting an update from the region this afternoon on something. So I'm expecting it to be about the land assembly.
Well, let's hope they make use of that good fertile land where, people can eat food where they can't, say, a storage factory or whatever, which costs a fortune in order to get all the minerals out of the ground in order to produce it.
But what if we create jobs? Then what? You can't eat if you can't buy the food either.
Well, it's like the farmers, the big farmers. They have only certain things that they grow, and a lot of them starve to death because they don't have food to eat.
The farmers don't have food to eat?
The ones that have this big like where they grow all this cattle and what have you, or grain, but they don't put gardens in.
All right, Francis, thank you for the call.
Take care. God bless.
You as well. Oh, Francis is an interesting character. Rudy, you're on Talkback.
Yeah, good day, Mike. The LRT, I think we should get it. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's going to take a lot of money from the feds and from the province. But if we don't get it, we should get something from the region because Cambridge paid a lot of money into theirs. and what we get a couple extra buses, big deal.
So
I never use it, but it's going to be good for my grandchildren.
right. So bus rapid transit, though, that doesn't cut it for you, eh?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I get you.
It does not. And the reason is because anything along the LRT, houses and everything else with businesses, their value goes up.
Certainly do. No question about it.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
Paul from Preston that usually phones you hasn't phoned for a while.
He just phoned like 10 minutes ago.
Okay, because he was cheating on you. He was phoning always Rob Snow a lot.
That's okay. You know why, Rudy? Because Paul doesn't like it when I give him a hard time. He can't handle it. That's why.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Paul from Preston called not 10 minutes ago. Told us about the the $42 million, $40+ million that the feds gave to the cricket production facility in London. Remember, we talked about it on the show. The crickets were going to be the new source of protein. We're all in on the cricket factory until we're not, and the cricket factory is done. And I guess we're not going to eat crickets as a source of protein. To the point that Rudy just made around light rail and wanting it, and the feds in the province had better kick in and make sure it happens. Don't forget that the federal and provincial money is still our money. It's just coming out of another pocket, and yes, we are distributing it more widely. So the people in Timmins that are helping to pay for our light rail are going to love it. But I will say again, as I've talked about around our inability to get somebody onto the federal cabinet, we are a going concern here. The region of Waterloo is a community of 700,000 people now, the 10th largest municipality in the entire country. I don't think we get the credit we deserve for what we contribute back into the economy of this province, the economy of this country. And so at least, the very least the feds and the province could do is make sure that we get phase 2 of light rail transit. This is Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We do continue here on the show this afternoon, getting you to an update from the 570 News Center at 1, and then Now You Know with Rob Snow through until 3 this afternoon. John is on the line with us. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Mike. To that earlier caller about the land on Bleems Road, I might be a scoop in the region, but I'm a farmer and 5 miles away or 4 miles away as the crow flies from that land. But there's about what the plan is the former owner of the property is going to be, who sold it to the region, is going to be leasing it back from the region and putting a crop in there within the next few days or whenever the soil is dry enough. We've had a bit of rain here, but whenever it's dry enough for the crop to be put back in there again, he's planning on putting crop in the field anyway. So that's 160 acres. So.
Oh, that's the one where the corn had been plowed under.
Yeah.
Good. So we're going to get some food back into that land.
Apparently, hopefully anyway, and there's got to be a few stones taken off the property, but other than that, working the land, and they had approached him earlier this spring with what they wanted for rent, and he told them they can go fly a kite for what they wanted for rent, but I guess I think it's at a reduced rate now. I haven't heard for sure what he's getting it for, but he's going to be putting corn on the farm again anyway. So,
well, I'm glad to hear that, John. Thank you very much for letting us know.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. There you go. And that was the question that Francis asked before. Francis, you got your answer. I love 570 News Radio Nation. Like, you are a bunch of terrific people. You're just coming up with answers all over the place, giving us the inside scoop. Dan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. I joined the conversation late, so I'm going to talk about the Leafs, if that's okay.
Please do.
I just want to say I'm not losing faith, but, and you know this all too well, if they play like they did on Sunday evening, tonight, they're going to lose. If they play like they had been, which is mucking it up in the corners, taking the body, and putting that extra effort in. That was really disappointing on Sunday, and they generally win when they do that.
I got faith, Dan. I'm feeling okay. Florida played a great game on Sunday, and we didn't help ourselves with all those dumb penalties in the first period.
Yeah, you got a point there. But like I said, they looked like a different team on Sunday. I was really disappointed. They could have had a stranglehold, and I think they just let it fall by the wayside. So they better wake up tonight, that's for sure. Go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs, go. I love it. What a great note to end on. Believe it or not, first time we've talked about the Leafs really on the show all day. Listen, Dan, I'm with you. I'm not losing faith. There's something like the team, they're a different team this year, certainly than they were last year and the year before that. I have enough faith in this bunch that they will come out with a better effort tonight. Remember, we are up against the defending champs after all, but I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are too. It'll be a 6:30 pregame right here on 570 News Radio. Leafs Panthers Game 5, series tied 2-2. The team that wins the fifth game goes on to win the series almost 80% of the time. As Dan said, go Leafs, go. My name is Mike Farwell.